Hello and welcome to I Still Call It a Lariat, the hottest new pro wrestling podcast being recorded at this exact moment. My name is stevezapf. I am the original line in wrestling you do not cross, and with me as always, my partner in crime, Mr. Showtime Michael Wright. How you doing
Thanks
today,
to Ray.
Mike?
I'm doing fantastic, living the dream like usual. Thanks for having me, Steven.
Awesome. This week on the show, we're going to go over whether or not the Elimination Chamber should have been eliminated. We'll preview AEW's Revolution and if it's going to be revolutionary. And unfortunately, we will converse about another legend going away from us. Let's start with that. Honestly, guys, Ole Anderson passed away this week on us. He was 80, 81, 82. I believe, Mike. I thought I read that he was just about 82 years old. Obviously lived a good, healthy, long life, but was a absolute legend in this business and is one of those guys that we can't say enough on the contributions that he made. You and I are both Horseman fan, and Ole is the quintessential Horseman. Sometimes when you say it, the fingers just get locked like that. With that said, we are going to have a moment of silence and do a 10 bell for Ole. Please, if you don't mind, let's just get that through. So, Showtime. We both love the Horsemen. We love everything about them, even down to some of the bad members. But Ole Anderson was not one of those bad members. He was a founding member. That is a huge deal when you are part of probably the most influential faction in pro wrestling history and you're the founding member of it. That's huge. I know you did a lot of research on his background as far as being a tag team specialist and stuff like that. I'm actually going to let you take a little bit of the lead on this one. This way we can really flesh out how amazing he was with stuff.
Yeah, the first I wanted to obviously send my condolences to his friends and family. This is never an easy time for anyone. So, of course, our thoughts and prayers are with you on that front. Back in when I was wrestling a few years ago, a lot of my style came from that type of wrestling. So around Ric Flair, Mr. Perfect, those were the guys I kind of emulated. The tag team stuff that we did together. Always tried to bring in that ring psychology from Ole and Arn, and from Gene. The impact that they had on the wrestling community as the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, specifically Ole and Gene in the beginning years, was kind of, there was an echo throughout all of the territories. They kind of defined what tag team wrestling really was. Ole was a 40-time tag team champion, which we talk about 16-time world champion, 40 times. And I know that number always kind of messes around and kind of moves.
I mean,
Depending on
I
who you're
feel
talking
like
to.
that puts him on in the same type of place where we talk about Jerry the King Lawler, where he's been a 300-time champion or something like that.
Yeah, so just the impact that he had, and I implore anyone to go out and kind of look at some of his old matches. They might seem a little slow during compared to modern day, but really the style, the ring psychology, really the way they put these things together are amazing. I'd recommend checking out the Starrcade '86 match between the Rock and Roll Express and Arn and Ole, really to kind of define the impact of what Ole and his original partner Gene had done. They actually brought Ric Flair in to be their cousin to get Ric Flair over. there was once a time where Ric Flair wasn't over, and they used the Minnesota Wrecking Crew to help him do that, which I think is just it's mind blowing in my opinion. And it's been so long. You're talking about the '70s and '80s when he was in the ring, so it's kind of a bygone era that the casual fan doesn't really know about them. So they've had a huge impact. He had feuded with some legends out there, be it Dusty Rhodes or Ricky Steamboat, the guys that everyone talks about, but he's not one that's usually in that conversation because he's a tag team wrestler. You kind of talk more about the Minnesota Wrecking Crew or kind of some of the later incarnations of it. I know a lot of people's favorite version of the Horsemen include Barry Windham. So like that's when Ole is starting to kind of exit the picture at that point in time. So just kind of one of those things, kind of paying tribute to someone who defined an era of tag team wrestling, someone who was a founding member of the greatest stable of all times. I don't care, like come at me. The Horsemen was the greatest stable of all times, in my opinion. And so, like I think it's worth an effort to go back and look at some of the things that he's done and some of the promos he's cut, some of the matches he's been a part of, because the guy was an absolute beast. Really understood what it took to kind of get the heat from the crowd. Like the Horsemen were so over, and the Minnesota Wrecking Crew were so over. It's so hated. I remember I was watching the Starrcade '86 match, and this is after they had broken Dusty's ankle. And as the Rock and Roll Express are working Ole and Arn's legs, the crowd is literally chanting "Break it." It's such a rabid crowd that they really wanted them to break his leg. So just worth a watch, worth kind of getting back into that. And, I think a lot of the current wrestlers would definitely have a benefit from going back and watching some of this old stuff and incorporating it into the new style.
I mean, I totally agree with all of that. We're both fans of the Andersons. It doesn't matter which one we're talking about, whether we want to talk about Ole, Gene, Arn, at this point, CW from the ECW. Like he was, he still wrestled that same style that they did. There's a reason he was the enforcer before Arn was. He's the tough guy. He was the Harley Race, if you will, of the group, and just was a no nonsense guy. I think that's the only issue that they ever had with him as far as people doing business with him was the version of him that was no nonsense in the ring was also no nonsense in the office. And unfortunately, I think that kind of made it a little hard to deal with him at times. But as far as his booking goes, there were points, there are storylines that we still talk about to this day. I mean, Ole was the booker for Georgia Championship Wrestling. He was the booker for WCW, which he doesn't get as much credit for because it was during like the Jim Herd and like not even the Nick Bockwinkel days. It was before that. It was the Cowboy Watts days where like everything was kind of all weird and they did weird stuff and didn't allow Flying Brian to come off the top rope or things like that. So he doesn't get as much credit as he does for the good things that happened during that. And of course, I mean, the best part of his career, he voiced the Shockmaster, which for you kids who don't know, go back and look back at the Shockmaster video. It's epic. It's just and he's also the reason why the Shockmaster fell because he's the one who put the wall back together. But I've actually recently heard this story. It's funny because I actually literally heard it, I think, a day or two ago on a different podcast about pro wrestling about Ole. And it was while he was being the board member, or he was one of the board members for Georgia Championship Wrestling. This was when Vince was going up and buying different promotions, and he had bought Georgia Championship Wrestling. And he went in front of the board and offered his hand out to Ole and said, "Hey, there's always a job for you here if you want it." And Ole's response was he stood up and said, "Go fuck yourself." And I believe the furthering of the story was he ended up meeting McMahon a few months later, and it was him and Linda together. And he tried to introduce him to his wife, and Ole still said, "Didn't I tell you to go fuck yourself?" Which goes back to him just being a no nonsense, take no prisoners guy. With Ole Anderson, it was a lot of what you saw is what you get. He had a very rough and tumble style, which I think still would have translated to today for being the size that he was. He did come off the top rope a little bit. I remember seeing something where he either came off the top or the second rope and they were holding the guy's arm and he came off with a flying knee, which was insane considering the size of him and Arn because they were both, what, 6'3" or 6'4" and well over 250 pounds.
Yeah, they were
So,
big
I mean,
boys.
there's a reason why those guys were considered the enforcers of the group. And it's even crazy to me to think that the whole reason for the Four Horsemen was they just didn't have enough TV time for their champions. So they stuck those guys together to do one giant heel promo, and it just worked. That's why it worked so well. Is I think it came together organically like that, and when something comes together in that sense, I think there's no turning back from it. Like you can't go against it. You're going against the grain. You're making your lives harder at this point, and Crockett was smart enough to not go against it. He just let them print him money. Um, Anything to add on the amazing career of Ole Anderson, Mr. Showtime?
Now, I just definitely everyone go out and try to just catch a couple matches of his. It doesn't matter really what it is. Just catch a couple of them. You'll see some really good classic wrestling coming from him.
Um, I agree. I think you can go back and watch anything from the mid to late '80s Starcade era. If you watch anything with Arn before him and Tully went to the WWF to become the Brainbusters, that's kind of the rest of it is just Arn and Ollie being together, being a tag team, and honestly, some of the most vicious stuff I've ever seen. And I'm saying that, and I watched Hogan drive a semi into the Rock, and Ole and the Horsemen made their stuff look way more vicious than that. All right, again, condolences to his family, to his friends. Ole, we love your work. We've never met you, but thank you for influencing us. If no one else, you influenced the generation that we come from, and thank you for all of that. We hope that you are resting in peace, resting in power, however you want to look at it. I hope you're doing all of that, however you want to spend your well-deserved afterlife. So next thing I want to get into is New Japan Pro Wrestling over this weekend brought in Matt Riddle and Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler is now going by his real name, which is Nick Nemeth. They put titles on both of them. Matt Riddle beating Tanahashi for the NJPW Strong Television title. That's so NJPW, for anyone who doesn't know, is their more US based version of the promotion. They actually have their own set of titles. NJPW Strong Television is the only one that kind of stays a little bit more in Japan because it's just their television title at this point. Him beating Tanahashi. Tanahashi is one. The way I want to think of him in description is he's the New Japan version of Shawn Michaels. They call him the Ace. He's the guy that when you need a match delivered, he still goes out there and delivers. He does. He's 47. He still hits a beautiful frog splash. He still hits a lot of really, really sweet moves over suicide dives and stuff like that. It's actually a little shocking because I know he's been through some wars. He hit a move. It was called the twist and shout neckbreaker in the match. It was kind of like he had him set up like he was gonna do a regular vertical suplex and immediately snapped him over for like a hanging neckbreaker type thing. Uh, if you get a chance to watch the match, I thought the match was good. I thought they did a lot of really nice actual wrestling exchanges. I think part of what it gets hard for me for New Japan is because they do follow rules pretty strictly. Is that their count is different? Their count outside the ring is a 20 count instead of a 10 count. So it gets a little. You have to understand that to get used to it. But they put on a wrestling match, and I appreciate that they put on a wrestling match. Now, obviously, Matt Riddle winning it, and he won it clean. He won it with a finisher, pretty cleanly. Like he hit two big moves and a finisher and just pinned Tanahashi, which that puts kind of a statement out there that you're ready to promote Matt Riddle. You don't think he's a problem child, and this, let's face it, he's a guy that he was a champion in WWE. He was a tag team champion, a US champion, and he has a legitimate fight background, which gives you that sports feel to it. He's got the MMA background. He's a New York State wrestling champion. He's done a lot of things, and I think this is a really cool win. I'm a little high on it because he's a training partner of mine, but I think this is having him go over on someone like Tanahashi is a big deal. Showtime, I know you didn't get a chance to watch the match, but just after giving you the description of how I feel Tanahashi is in regard to Japan, what are you thinking about this so far?
No, it's exciting, and I plan on checking out these matches. I love it when they add wrestling back into wrestling. I'm pretty hungry for that. I love a good wrestling match where it comes through, and I think that these two guys coming in there it is a big deal. I think I said it on one of the shows. I think it'll help bring more attention there with some guys that I think people are really kind of hungry to see more of. I know that with Nick Nemeth specifically, I felt like he kind of got buried on the WWE's never-ending roster, and not that I ever want to see anybody get released. I'm hoping that this turns into a net positive for him, where he really gets to go out there, show that he could be a top guy, and who knows, maybe he will come back one day and show off that he's a top guy, or go and help some other promotions compete with the WWE or what have you. So really excited about this. I know we talked about it in a previous show as well. That I think that these guys are trying to come over there to elevate the brand a bit as New Japan is starting to lose some faces to the U.S. It's almost like they're doing a foreign exchange student program here, and so like I like seeing them go out there, winning some gold right away, putting on some really quality matches, kind of helping some of the younger people step up to take the reins from these guys as these halls are being filled in the meantime.
Yeah, the nickname is David Finley, which if anyone does not know who David Finley is, he is the eldest son of David Fit Finley, who I know me and Mr. Showtime are both big fans of Fit Finley. His stuff is, if you again, if you're fans of Ole Anderson, you're going to be fans of Fit Finley. It's rough and tumble and no nonsense, and it makes sense. And I like things that make sense. That's kind of where we're at. The way I talk about David is he is kind of a streamlined version of his father. He, I think a lot of what we saw was always that Belfast Bruiser look of Fit, where David is. He looks a little bit more athletic. He can move a little bit better. Not that Fit ever moved badly, but he had his specific style. David still does a pretty rough and tumble style, but he likes to go a little bit more in the wrestling side of things and show that he can do it. I thought this match was good. I like that Nick Nemeth adds a bit of showmanship to the New Japan crowd, to the New Japan world. They they definitely needed it. I think they do certain things for showmanship, but even things on this card, some of it almost seemed like it took too long for like they had Okada's last singles match, and while they were waiting for him to come out, it was cool what they did. His robe was all white, and they literally had a black light come down, and as it hit, it changed it from white to whatever the colors were. Like it scientifically did it. But the problem was is it wasn't a very smooth mechanism. So like I could see if WWE went and did it, it'd be like it would just go and you would just flash it almost. And it was cool, but it, like I said, it took a little bit too long. I think Dolph, Nick, whatever you want to call him, really went out there with the intention to show off, for lack of a better word, show that he can still go in the ring, even though he is also a little bit on the older side. He's 43, so he's probably a little closer to the end than he is to the beginning. But they the match started. They had David jump start it and really kind of powder him out of the ring, kind of shit can him out, um, and really rough him up before the bell even started. And then when they started it, it was Nick Namath kind of getting back to his feet a little bit. And Finley went to run at him, and immediately Dolph hits him with a super kick and almost catches the pin right off the bat, which a little part of me almost wished that they had done it in that like quick surprise, like one shot knockout type thing. Uh, don't get me wrong. I very much enjoyed the match. I thought that it was a very, very rough and tumble match. They wanted to prove that Nick coming in could show off and could do the fight style. I think this was a good, both these matches were good combinations of Eastern and Western pro wrestling. It showed a lot. I think coming out of this, it has a lot more to do, like putting two titles on two international stars like this is the right way to transition from Okada leaving. It gives you a chance if anyone is looking, oh, what's Matt Riddle doing? Oh, what's Nick Namath / Dolph Ziggler doing? Oh, they're in Japan. We can get the New Japan app and watch it. I think it's smart. I think having maybe one more guy come in and maybe go after their world title might be a big deal for them. They went after, it was what I say, the TV title, and then Namath won the global championship, which is kind of like their intercontinental, their US. It's their number two title, which I believe it or not, I don't like it as the global title. When they were using it as the US title, it was actually the New Japan US Championship is actually one of my favorite titles of recent memory. And even still, and also the New Japan World title that they're using, I don't like comparatively to the belt that it was previous. I thought they were really, really awesome, like classy looking belts. Um, but Showtime, what do you think? Bringing those two guys in to kind of supplement essentially your John Cena leaving.
Yeah, and I actually had a question for you on that front because as I saw, which I mentioned before, I think that was great for them to come in there to help kind of fill the gap that they needed. You have two people who have star power, they have recognizable faces, people who had prominent roles with the E. You can't can you call it the Fed anymore with WWE.
New
Uh,
York.
New York. So like they have the notoriety. They have enough of a presence to kind of go in there and not need someone to introduce who they are. But a lot of the things I saw with Okada leaving, having somebody of that caliber, some of the things he said, it kind of seemed like he was burying New Japan, and I was curious if you had the same kind of feel for that because he didn't put anybody over. He really kind of some of the things that I read was these guys, the younger guys need to step up or New Japan's going to die. Things along those lines, which it kind of felt a little weird with him kind of making those remarks and then leaving. Kind of felt like he was trying to bury them a bit.
So I think making the remarks that if the young guys don't step up, New Japan's going to die definitely sounds kind of bad. The other stuff, like I have no intention of coming back. I don't think that's as bad. I think that's he's 37 years old, and if he signs a 4-year contract, is he really going to jumpstart his career again in Japan at, let's say, 43, 44 years old? Probably not. He's going to make his money real quick, and I think this is the last. I think he's maybe got one or two contracts left in him, and then he's going to go home to his movie star wife and relish in the millions of dollars that he's made either in America or Japan. Um, as far as him not putting anyone over, I've been watching Japan for a couple of years now. As far kind of ever since Jericho came over to feud with Omega, I kind of took an interest in it and started watching a bit more. And I'm not gonna lie, I've never been a huge Okada fan. I think his work is very good and it's smooth in the ring. I think he has a good amount of size. I think he has a beautiful drop kick. I think he has a lot of really good in ring acumen. At the same time, I also think that he's a little boring at times, and it could just be a language barrier for me. I think he doesn't change his facial expressions. He doesn't make things. He never looks like he's doing anything more than I'm a wrestler guy. Even though his whole gimmick is he's the rainmaker, he's the money maker. He comes out and gets the huge ovation, but it's like a huge ovation for a guy who's kind of talking like Ben Stein. It just doesn't doesn't do it for me. I I want to see what they do with him in America. I want to see what since it sounds like he's going to AEW, definitely. I want to see what AEW does with him. I want to see what Tony can do with him, if anything. Or is he going to be one of these guys that comes over and he's hot for 2 weeks and then we don't see him for 3 months? And look, it's cool for him because he's still getting paid during that time, but it's not gonna it that doesn't help him with American audiences. So I think Okada has some work that he has to put in. I feel like the last couple years he's been putting on really good matches, but it's still a matter of he's putting on kind of the same matches, and it's you know it is what it is. I think he's never fully put anyone over. I think him losing to even Omega for the world title or the heavyweight title, which whatever way you want to put it, is exactly what had to happen at that moment. But they put it back on Okada, I don't know, a couple months later. So he becomes Cena at that point.
Yeah,
You
kill
keep
that
you
heat.
yeah, you just keep giving it back to him. My only other real issue with New Japan, and it's in the name itself. New Japan Pro Wrestling makes it very regionalized. You know that you're only watching New Japan. You know, whether or not you have American stars there or not, it's always been my belief that they should uh, change the name over. The title, and it's even more confusing because the titles are not New Japan; they're IWGP, which I think is a better wrestling name on right, or a better wrestling promotion name because it's the International Wrestling Grand Prix, and I think that would almost build fans a little bit more if what does the common fan know about Japanese wrestling? Well, nothing, but the common fan might know Matt Riddle and Dolph Ziggler, and if they're wrestling for the IWGP, they might go check it out. And I think it's
I
the
think
same
that
thing.
the common fan does know a bit about Japanese wrestling, more like less about the people and more about the style and more about how it's taken much more seriously than it is here. Where like I love watching some of those matches where the crowd is completely silent and you're just like, this is weird. Like no one's why isn't anybody saying anything? Did they break? Like what is there a glitch in the matrix? What's happening here? So like that I appreciate that, and I think that's the argument for staying with a name like NJPW, because it's more the style than the region, in my opinion. Um,
Okay.
but with that said, I agree with you. So I'm not disagreeing. I'm actually agreeing. But like I see why you'd want to keep it. It has a legacy name. Like you don't want to change something that has a bit of that clout out there. So I understand why you wouldn't want to change the name of the promotion and that. But you make some very valid points there.
Um, it's funny that you. I lost my point there. No, I definitely think that they do have that certain style, and I do agree with you. I think the fans know the style. I think that's the problem, though, is they don't know the wrestlers, and they might just think, well, what do I want to watch Japanese wrestling for? I can just, there's not going to be anyone over there that I like, which I think that's always going to be kind of the issue is it's going to be hard for them to build off of that.
Yeah, that's
Um,
in general. That's the problem with American sports throughout. Like, if it doesn't happen here, it doesn't happen. And that's not my opinion, but I feel like that's why the soccer is not more popular in the U.S., where it's the global sport, but it doesn't happen here. So who cares? This isn't all that different.
um, to touch on your point before, I remembered what I wanted to say now about the fans being silent. They did or they because they still did the Wrestle Kingdom shows, which for anyone who doesn't know, Wrestle Kingdom is New Japan's version of WrestleMania. They do it every year at the Tokyo Dome. Every year it's 60, 70,000 people in the Tokyo Dome. It's a huge show. It's amazing. I recommend seeing it because it is the biggest stage that some of these guys go on, and it's kind of really cool. It's awesome to see, kind of like watching a WrestleMania. It's awesome to see. Um, but obviously during pandemic they did it sparsely. Like that by the time they got to the show for during the start of pandemic, they were already they were still only I think 20,000 fans in the building, which for a 70,000 person arena, that's a lot of splitting them up. The other side of this is when they did it the following year. I think it was. I think this was 2022. They went in there and they were finally allowed to have fans, and they went in and they did their thing. But the fans still had to wear masks, and they made a compromise with the fans, and it was something that I thought would never ever go over with Americans. You could only do this in with these types of fans, and that was they gave them noisemakers, and they said we will allow you guys to fill the arena for at least I think it was still like 75%. Like they still didn't go full 100%, but we'll pretty much fill the arena, but you are not allowed to audibly cheer. You can clap your hands. We will give you noisemakers and you can slap those together, but you cannot audibly cheer. I don't think that would work in America. I don't think you could I don't think any way, shape, or form you could look at a group of rabid pro wrestling fans or any sports fan in America and say, hey, you can go in the arena, but you're not allowed to shout go team.
Yeah,
I
zero chance. Actually, I'd pay to watch someone tell them that,
yeah,
and just
because
watch the riot ensue.
yeah, because they're gonna get mauled. The riot is gonna attack those people. Like it's gonna be 20,000 people going after one guy. It's
They just told me to say it. Please,
yeah,
please.
yeah. It's gonna look like the zombies chasing Shaun of the Dead. Um, you
Sorry,
got red
Phil.
on you. Yeah, you got red on you. But it was always it's always one of those things that that level of respect is something that I think New Japan's fans definitely hold in a certain high regard, and I always appreciated that. I even appreciate the wrestling. I think their wrestling style, for the most part, especially the older stuff. Showtime. I'm gonna say this. There's a match on there that I go back and I rewatch every so often. It is the battle of possibly some of the toughest men to ever step in the ring, and there's some of our favorites. It's a tag team match, and the tag match is the Steiners, which it's still when Scott had long dark hair, and he hadn't fully gotten into the Big Papa Pump thing. This is, I think, we're thinking like '93 the match happened, and so we're already talking about two big guys, and the two other guys on the other side of the ring are Vader and Bam Bam Bigelow.
I knew you were going to say Vader. I knew he was a big deal in Japan during that time.
And Vader and Bam Bam at the time were the heavyweight tag team champions. And you want to talk about four guys that just went in there and busted each other up. Like there was a point where Rick picked up Bam Bam or Vader or one of them or both of them. And I don't know if there was a jump. I think he just lifted them. He was just like, I got you. It's cool. And they did some crazy stuff. Rick still hit his power slam on, I think, Bam Bam. It was insane. And Bam Bam showed off all that athleticism he had for being a 400 pounder. And
Yeah,
same
he
thing
could
for,
move.
yeah, and same thing for Vader. Let's not discount that both these guys could do moonsaults and things like that. Like and kind of how you said you don't like flips when they don't make sense. When a 400-pound man does a backflip off the top rope onto you, it makes perfect sense.
Oh yeah, give me a flip if it makes sense. It makes you faster, or stronger, or hit harder, whatever. Like it just has to make sense in the ring in the moment.
Plus, they got some huge height on their stuff. I don't have much else for the Japan stuff. They were, like I said, I think this is the proper transition coming from Okada leaving. I think Namath might be the type of guy that you can transition very quickly from that secondary title to the heavyweight title, and you'll get a really good match out of him and a really memorable championship run, even so long as he stays healthy. My question, I know he's never really had too many bad injuries, but the fact of the matter is he's still 43 and he's been doing this for a really long time. And after a while, your body just starts breaking down, especially in that Japanese strong style. The good thing about the Japanese strong style, though, is also they don't work as often. They do a show a week, a show every 2 weeks. Sometimes they go 30 straight days without doing a single show. So they do have that going for them. Now another place that Nick Namath is TNA. I think TNA has a lot of promise as well. I know they recently that there's been a video that was recently posted on social media, on YouTube, on varying social media accounts of the TNA talent um, coming out as kind of a show of solidarity after the release of Scott D'Amore. Um, I think this was absolutely the right thing for them to do to show that no matter what, they're still going to go out there and give the fans their all. Again, we don't know the backstage politics of what actually happened because we're not there. We neither one of us ever worked for TNA. The most the most interaction I've had is I know some of the workers there, and I have actually sat down and talked with Scott, just not recently. And I feel like it would be a little bit of a slap in the face if I sent him an email right now and was like, "Hey, what happened? I'd like to talk about it on the podcast." I think much like Oli, he'd tell me to go fuck myself. Um, so again, we don't have much on that. Other than that, I think this was the right thing to do. The only as far as talent goes, the only thing that I've heard talent wise of someone possibly being a little unhappy just all around staying with TNA was Josh Alexander. Josh Alexander was their heavyweight champion. He was a guy that was getting pushed very heavily by Scott D'Amore, and I think his contract was about to come to an end, and he was going to start. And I think he was going to do it even before Scott left. But with Scott leaving, he definitely was thinking about searching out the different promotions and seeing if there was a place for him in WWE or AEW or something, or even Japan, and seeing what they could do with him there. Because he is a kind of a straight wrestler. He has a bit of that Kurt Angle, Rick Steiner combo mentality where he's a little bit hard nosed and he throws a lot of wrestling moves and he still wears the wrestling earmuffs and stuff like that. Um, but TNA exercised their option to extend Alexander's contract. And it only makes me question whether or not he wanted to do it. Is usually when something like that happens, the company will post, we've mutually decided to extend a contract. They kind of just posted that the contract was extended, not that it was his choice or their choice or anything like that. So it kind of made it sound like it wasn't really his choice.
Yeah, it's all speculation at this point in time. Though, when you look at it, I'm sure that he's going to go out there and give it his all for the next year that he's under that contract. And who knows if they sign another one after the fact. We'll know. Like, if they sign another one after the fact, either it got better or he always wanted to be there in the first place. But anything we say at that point in time is just speculation
Yeah, complete and
on
utter
his
speculation right now.
yeah, overall for TNA though, what concerns me is some of the stuff that came out of this, on like what Scott wanted to do, why they let him go. Again, I'm only getting secondhand news here, so I'm only reacting to this stuff. But it sounds like Anthem doesn't want to put more money into the product. They want to keep it on the smaller side. They want to keep it all in their house with their stuff, kind of keeping it low cost and almost being like, look, we got a wrestling thing over here. The switch over from Impact to TNA seemed like there was going to be big things. Bringing in Nick made it feel like it was going to be a big thing. And now it doesn't seem like they're actually in the market for any bigger talent to come in there. So you have what you have, and you already have. I know you said there didn't seem like there was too many people unhappy, but you know, people like Naomi just leave. There's a couple other people who kind of leave. It almost feels like TNA is that place where people go to cut their teeth, showcase a couple of matches, and then go elsewhere. And that's not what you want for something a place that I think is promising. They have some good talent there, where a couple other names, some bigger names to draw people in, could be all the difference. And if Anthem's not willing to invest in the product, then it's gonna fizzle. There's nothing you can do. There's only so much that the boys in the back can show solidarity while not feeling that support. You're not gonna have a major league, the movie Major League thing where, oh, we're gonna win the whole damn thing in spite of the ownership. This is kind of where they're at. They know the place they're in. They were able to come out and show that solidarity and that they are kind of together, and they're going to put the best product out there for the fans, because we always say the number one thing that everyone wants to do with wrestling is make money. The second one is entertain the fans. It always is a close number two. So I really appreciate them coming out there and saying that you're going to get the best out of us, but at the same time, it's not promising thinking that they're going to get a free agent that could really throw a spotlight on the place.
I don't know if they're not going to throw any money out. I think that is what they need to do as well, is get some of the people who might be coming to the end of their contracts. The only thing is I don't know if anyone's gonna not re-sign certain contracts. At least as far as WWE goes, I think a lot of people are really happy with the TKO UFC WWE merger deal. I think a lot of people are seeing it as the TKO part of it, now that they're taking control, is giving them a lot of opportunities and freedoms to do things that WWE was not allowing them to do at one point. Even as far as doing things sport related that are okay, you can go train jujitsu, or you can go train blah 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 blah. We want you in shape, but no, you're not allowed to go do competition for it. Like that could be a problem for us. So no, you can't go do it. Which I understand both sides of it, but also on the TKO side of things, if you have a guy, again, Baron Corbin or a Matt Riddle, where they go out and they do a legitimate jujitsu competition or a legitimate MMA fight, and you're backing it, all of a sudden the guy comes back and you can sell the fact that he's legitimate, that he went and did this and won the an entire national jiu-jitsu tournament. Or Matt goes out there, which I know they've had talks about maybe him going against Jake Paul for the PFL, and he goes out there, and whether or not you believe Jake Paul should be in a any type of professional fighting ring or not, he goes out there and just slacks him. It still is a pro fighter beating up another pro fighter, and he comes back to pro wrestling, and you go, are you going to doubt how real this guy is? Like, are you going to doubt that he can go out to the bar tonight and beat up mostly everyone else? No, because he can do all those things. I
Yeah,
think he
it's the
could.
same thing that happened with Brock, right? Like, I don't know, are we allowed to say his name at this point in time?
We are. We
But
are.
he was, yeah, we're allowed to. So, he was a monster when he was in WWE in the first place. He left and dominated the UFC for a minute, and then came back, and then he was a whole different kind of monster.
Yeah.
Like, he was so legit. Like, someone, I remember I listened to a shoot interview with Paul Heyman a while back, and they were talking about someone saying that Brock didn't want to lose something, and then he lost or something, like some roundabout way. And at the end of the day, he was like, "Have you seen Brock Lesnar? You ever listen to him talk? If he doesn't want to lose, he's not going to lose." And I've never believed anyone more
Yeah.
than that sentence when he said it, because I was like, "Yep, yeah. If he doesn't want to lose, I don't see him losing, and I don't see anyone that's going to put him on his back in order to make him lose."
I think the interview in question is the him making Undertaker lose the streak.
But yeah, I think that's right.
I think that I have heard of that interview, and I always and again, this goes back to my absolute love of Paul Heyman's work, because as much as he's kind of given a shoot, if you ever like the reason why shoot interviews work is because there has to be a little bit of work in it,
Mhm.
and he kind of works the interview where he's like, maybe Lesnar didn't want to lose, or maybe he really gave Undertaker a concussion because something happened, or maybe this happened. I couldn't tell you either way, but like again, that's him working. He I don't know if that man is ever not working. And at the same time, I totally agree. Once Lesnar came back, he was a completely different animal as far as the WWE was concerned. He went from being the next big thing to being the big thing.
The big thing, yeah.
He was it. Like he wasn't the future anymore. He was the measuring stick. And I've always said Brock puts on a good match. Even after he came back, where he was getting ridiculed a lot for being a part timer, for doing this, for not doing jobs, not doing that. Well, if he kept doing jobs, he wouldn't be a special attraction, and he became the most special attraction that they had. There were two guys that, if they were on the card, you probably tuned in, and it was him and Taker at the time. And when they did another run of him and Taker versus each other, sure enough, I tuned in every single pay-per-view for it.
Well, we just reviewed the first elimination chamber for the O2 Survivor Series,
Yeah.
and that match with him and the Big Show was absolutely fantastic. And like he tossed the Big Show around, and like no one tosses the Big Show around like that. So like, he really had the ability and the skill to kind of get in there and do that.
I think him and yeah, absolutely. And we're again going off on a little bit of a tangent on
Yeah.
Brock. Back to reel us back into TNA. I think them bringing in I think at least one or two more talents. I think they're going to have to look at the AEW talent pool at this point. I honestly think that if WWE wants to re-sign their talents, I think the talents are going to re-sign at this point. I think they're getting a lot of leeway as far as being able to do things that they want. I think this is the first time I've heard in history that a locker room is kind of happy. Like everyone's pretty in. The product is good. They're making good money. They're even the guys who aren't making great money are still making good money. They're still trying to work everyone in some way, shape, or form. I just saw something that they're trying to make another tag team with Cedric Alexander and one of the guys from Hit Row, Ashante the Adonis, he was kind of a last minute replacement for Swerve Strickland when they brought them all up to the main roster. But that just proves that they're trying to still do something with some of these guys that they believe could have some potential somewhere. And if nothing else, I believe that they're keeping some of these guys because not to screw the other promotion, but maybe later on in life they can help their promotion. These are guys that, okay, they might not be the most over guys in the world, but they know what it takes to put together a match. They know what it takes to get someone else over, and they'll be great producers at some point. And instead of letting them go, they're just going to keep them under contract and then eventually transition them to backstage agents. So as far as TNA goes, I think that's it. I know we mentioned that I mentioned that they might try stealing some talent from AEW if some of their contracts come up. I think that's as good of a segue as any to go over AEW's Revolution pay-per-view. It is coming up. We are looking forward to it. I think we should go over some of the matches, decide whether or not this pay-per-view is going to pique our interest at all, whether it's anything that is worth watching outside of Sting retiring.
Yeah. So for me, this as I've mentioned before, I'm kind of getting back into wrestling. I followed the WWE a lot more over the years. I have not followed AEW all that closely. A few people here and there. I was always a big Jericho fan. I know that the Edge going over there and Christian Cage, a few others, Brian Danielson. Like I paid attention to some of those guys from like a distance, but not really too much. So I'm excited about this pay-per-view to kind of get me into AEW in general. Every time I talk to somebody about the dynamics of the different feds, WWE has the best storylines. They have great wrestling, but like really they kind of pride themselves in the storylines more than anything else. And AEW is where you get wrestling. Now, I haven't really gotten that from the little bits that I've watched so far. I'm not saying it's not there, but I'm like this card seems jam packed. There's tons of talent on this show. So I'm really excited. There's more titles than I know what to do with. I think there's 7 title defenses going on here. And so I put some predictions together as well. Some of these are kind of just shooting from the hip. A lot of them are kind of what I think you should do rather than what I think, rather than what I want it to be. So that's kind of the way I kind of went forward with this one.
Um, yeah, I am hopeful. I am hopeful that this show does get centered around Sting as it should. I think there are certain matches on this card that slightly confuse me. And I know we're gonna go over our predictions for this. Um, so let's get in and let's get right into it. The first match that we have on here is Wardlow versus Powerhouse Hobbs versus Lance Archer. I think we both put Wardlow on here for our predictions.
We did.
Uh, I also think that part of that is because Wardlow is the only one out of the 3 that Mike knows who that is.
No.
Here's the thing. Wardlow and Powerhouse Hobbs, if this was just a one-on-one match between the two of them, I think this would be really good. I don't dislike Lance Archer. I think Lance Archer is going to get lost in this shuffle. Wardlow is unfortunately a guy who keeps going up and down as far as the talent goes. I think he's very talented, and I think he's been mishandled as far as booking goes. And he's been in and out of the program, so we kind of don't know if we should like him or not like him. Powerhouse Hobbs, I think, has all of the appeal with a better body as like a Mark Henry does. I think he can easily do that type of situation. And just the proof of it was kind of what they did was have Hobbs hit the Big Show. I'm sorry, Paul White with the World's Strongest Slam out on like a car or something like that. Like it was a little unnecessary. It was a street fight, so I get it. But they did that. Lance Archer, for the longest time, I know he was being aligned with Jake the Snake Roberts. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten to see much of Lance Archer. I don't know if he's really been out there as much as they're trying to make this out to be. But I know Jake was kind of like his devil on the shoulder type guy, which Jake works perfectly for that. I think this has to be Wardlow. They're supposed to be building him towards being the world champion for the Devil Group. I don't the United Kingdom. That's what they're called. I'm sorry. I could also see, though, as much as I picked Wardlow, I could see like Hobbs winning this to try to give him a push for Callis's group, and this being like kind of a shot at Wardlow, so that they might be able to turn him face again and have him be the guy that is the scapegoat for the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I dig the idea. Like, I feel like people have been talking about meat madness, which didn't think I was going to say that tonight. But I really like I've seen a lot of people talking more and more about potentially even doing more super heavyweight divisions in wrestling, and I'm down for it. I think it'd be cool. Like if you can get some big dudes, 270 plus, 265 plus, coming into these rings and putting on good matches, but like big strongman style matches, there's an attraction there. That I think that's cool. Like it doesn't have to eliminate them from being in other parts of the card, being able to put together good shows with smaller guys. Like everyone's smaller at that point in time, but these really big guys going out there and just taking the ring down. I think that there's a market for it. So that's what I hope to see in this match. It always worries me when you have so much man and so small of a square. That's what you're going to see here with these 3 guys. So that's my one reservation for this match.
I think it has potential. Wardlow has a lot of potential still. I'd like to see him seize it. Powerhouse Hobbs is another one of those guys that has a lot of potential. I'd like to have him seize. Lance Archer, I've seen him in Japan. I've seen him in WWE. I've seen him in TNA. I think he is very good. I think he is seizing whatever potential he has as far as putting out great product. It's just a matter of, I don't know. Again, I think this is a situation where he might not always be booked the best. I know he's made some iffy decisions on moves and has hurt himself at times. As far as you're too big to be doing this, and just because you think you can doesn't mean you should.
Dude's also pushing 50.
Is he?
He's 47.
Yeah. So that's the thing. I think this is the last real chance for him to have a run. And I don't think he's going to get a real run. Honestly, I think this is going to be he's going to take the pin from whoever it is that wins this match. Next match we have on here is FTR versus the Blackpool Combat Club. The team consisting of John Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli. If you don't know who those guys are, it is Dean Ambrose and Cesaro from WWE. I think this has potential to be a good match if Moxley gets reined in. John Moxley went from working for the biggest promotion in the entire world. Let's not lie to ourselves. WWE is still the number one place to be a wrestler in the entire planet, galaxy, universe, whatever you want to call it. This is the spot. And it's like he just reverted back to being an indie garbage guy sometimes. I realize he has his fans. I realize some of the fact that he has his fans is because he does those matches. FTR is the best tag team in the world. If anyone is wondering about that, they are. If anyone's wondering who the best tag team in the world is, it is FTR. Especially since Jay Briscoe tragically passed away earlier, not that long ago. FTR now holds that title. You can tell me that there's a bunch of other great tag teams. You can say the Bucks. You can say all these other guys. The one common factor with all of those guys is that all of their best matches is with FTR. You know what that means? FTR is the best tag team in the world. And for someone like you, Showtime, who I think you might have seen them a bit when they were in WWE here and there, but they are very, very similar to an Arn and Tully, which that's perfect. That's exactly what they don't do things that don't make sense. They literally use the catchphrase, no flips, just fists.
Yeah, that's the reason why I have them winning this match. I think they should win this match. Like I said, do I think they're going to win this match? This is one of the few coin tosses I thought were on this card. We'll talk about Elimination Chamber later, but I felt like that was very predictable. Whereas this card, I think this card is relatively predictable when you go down it, but there are a few of them that I think can go either way, which is nice to have. And this is one of them. So if I'm doing the booking, if I'm the one that's that's running the show here, I'm putting FTR over. I think they're the better tag team. They're the more cohesive unit. So that's why I lean towards them. And I know that you have a different opinion.
So I actually don't have a different opinion in the sense
you have a different opinion on who's going to win.
I have a different opinion who's going to win. I completely agree with what you just said, because it goes along with what I just said, is that they're the best tag team in the world. And they're a tag team that is good enough that you can have them main eventing and drawing you money as a tag team, which if you're going to try to separate yourself from the other promotions, do something like that. And I know you and I both love tag team wrestling.
Good tag team wrestling.
This
real good psychology within it, like a real good match. It beats singles matches a lot of times.
In all honesty, I know we have the access to the Ring of Honor stuff. Go back and watch their 3 matches with the Briscoes. I know one of the matches is just a plain match. One of the matches is, I think, a dog collar match, and I think one is like a ladder match or something like that. It's something where like you get 2 gimmick matches and you get one like regular match, and it's everything that you want out of tag team wrestling, and they main evented. They drew money as a tag team. They're kind of the group that if you brought them back to being a heel tag team, and you found them their own Rock and Roll Express, it would be the perfect foil. Now, with that said, I think that the booking of FTR lately has been atrocious, and that makes me think that Moxley and Claudio are going to win. Not because they should win, just because even leading into this, what they did, what kind of the stuff that they've done leading into this match was they had Moxley and Dax. That is the bald one. I'm sorry, I confuse their names with their because it's different names, but it's Dax and Cash. Dax is the bald FTR member with the mustache. He's also an amazing worker. He's on the par with a guy like an Arn Anderson or a Tully Blanchard if we're looking at old school guys. And they went out there and had an okay match. He, like I said, he managed to rein in Moxley a little bit, and then he hit him with like a pile driver or his signature DDT or whatever it was, spiked him on his head, and instead of just finishing him like that, decided he was going to add insult to injury and hit him with the bulldog choke that he does, and passed him out, knocked him out, tapped him out, and then wouldn't release it, and it just made Dax look not good. And then when Cash came out to save him because the rest of the Blackpool Combat Club beat the crap out of them. So they just made them both look weak. So we're getting this match, and you just made the best tag team in the world look weak. Which is why I have a difference of opinion as to who is going to win the match. I have the same opinion on who should win the match.
Yeah.
The next match we have on here is Christian Cage versus Daniel Garcia. This is the first title match that we are looking at. This is for Christian Cage's TNT title. This we are completely on the same page on. We think Christian Cage is going to win this. I don't mind Daniel Garcia. I think Daniel Garcia, if they had like a cruiserweight title, realistically, is a better spot for him. If they did something as far as cruiserweights go, I realize I'm one of the ones who says that they have too many titles, but if they maybe eliminated like 2 of their titles and did a cruiserweight title, Daniel Garcia would be a nice, almost like Dean Malenko fold to it. I think this match, Christian is doing too much good work to take the title off of him, and I think the plan is obviously to continue with him and Edge. I'm sorry, Adam Copeland.
Yeah, so that's why I'm not convinced Christian's going to win this. Christian Cage is going to win this match. That's who I chose because I think they're going to have it with Adam Copeland, but I think that's what they're trying to build for. That's what they wanted this match to be. I think, though, at the same time, I don't think those two guys need to face each other and have a belt involved in order to make it entertaining or an attraction. So that's the main reason I could see them dropping this belt at this time to get it onto Daniel Garcia, give him a little bit of heat, some like kind of have people care more about what he's doing, while Christian Cage and Adam Copeland go and do the clinic that they've wanted to do. Reason why he came to AEW in the first place. Or I could also see Adam Copeland turning heel quickly after this, and the two of them teaming up after Christian Cage loses the title, so then they go win the tag titles. So I could see both paths. So that's the paths of Christian Cage losing here. Though at the same time, I chose Christian Cage.
Yeah, I think I think it has the potential to be a good wrestling match. I think it's just going to be that. It's going to be a good wrestling match. I think Daniel Garcia is not as over as they think he is. I think his little dance is over. But I think he always has like I said, I think he always has boo-boo face. I think he's not smooth when he speaks. He kind of doesn't have all the he's not a 5-tool player, if you will. So I think we're both right. I think Cage comes out of this still with the title. I think Daniel Garcia honestly gets smacked down, and then Adam Copeland comes out to save him at some point. Um, Next match we have on here is Will Ospreay versus Konosuke Takeshita. If anyone's wondering, that is how you say his name. It is not take a shit. It is. I will occasionally call him Take. He is one of my favorite AEW wrestlers right now. I think he is one of my favorite Japanese wrestlers right now. I think he is going to lose this match. I think this is Ospreay's initial debut as far as being a signee. I think there's no way that they have him lose. I think the backstory to this match is absolutely convoluted and dumb, but it's Ospreay. The whole story is that no one is willing to take on Takeshita, so they're going to have Ospreay take him on. The problem with that is they're in the same stable, and they're both heels working with Don Callis, and Don Callis is the one who did it. So either you're trying to screw Takeshita or you're trying to, lessen Ospreay's debut. Either way, I think it almost does both. What are you thinking on
It
this one,
probably
Sean?
does. It probably does do both. I just think right now, Will Ospreay is the one that makes sense to put over in this moment in time. Kind of giving him a push. I could see this even go to a time limit draw. Like, let's go old fashioned time limit draw time. I wouldn't make that prediction. I have Ospreay as well. So so the fact that they're in the same stable, the heel versus heel, give me a good match. That's all I'm looking at this. I don't care about the storyline. I think I dozed off a little bit there while you were explaining it because it's so convoluted, as you said. So I think that Will Ospreay going over makes more sense, but I could very much see it be one of those like, let's go to a time limit draw. These guys are both amazing. They're working together, and no one's going to be able to stop them now. I could see that narrative coming out of this.
Definitely. Next match we have on the card is going to be Eddie Kingston and Bryan Danielson. Kingston is the champion. This is for the Continental Crown title. Just a little backstory as far as what the Continental Crown title was. It was AEW's attempt to do All Japan's Triple Crown Championship type of situation. The difference is All Japan's Triple Crown had decades of history. This just took the New Japan Strong title, the Ring of Honor heavyweight title, and I don't even know what the third title was that he had. And they did a tournament for this, and Kingston won it. Kingston and Danielson have been kind of on a trajectory for with each other. Danielson flip-flops from face to heel depending on what week you're talking about it. I think this is Kingston. I think Danielson, at the very least, has too much control in the back as far as booking goes, and Tony Khan's ear and making sure that they do certain things that I think almost like putting a title on him right now doesn't make sense for that reason. But I see that we actually both have the same choice for this. So, Showtime, what's your reasoning behind Kingston over Danielson?
So there's the stipulation that if Ospreay wins, Danielson has to shake his hand. So why have that stipulation if Ospreay's
You mean
not going to
Kingston?
go
You mean
over?
Kingston?
Oh, Kingston. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm on the wrong spot. Well, Kingston. Yeah. So Bryan Danielson has to shake his hand if he beats him. And like the whole narrative that I've seen is that Kingston's not the guy. Danielson, he's been the guy multiple times, so he doesn't need any validity. I believe they did a similar storyline with Jericho not so long ago, if I'm not mistaken,
I
and
think so.
Jericho
Yeah.
didn't shake his hand. So I don't know, like just this kind of stipulation. I dig this stipulation. I don't dig doing it multiple times, but it's a really cool old school kind of gimmick that I pop for old school stuff that kind of fell out of favor, and you find ways to add it back in. So in my mind, the only reason you do that stipulation is to put Kingston over, give him the heat of beating Bryan Danielson, and then kind of going from there. So again, like I said, I don't know a ton about some of these guys. if I'm booking it and I book it that way, that's kind of why I did it.
Yeah. Next, we've got Orange Cassidy versus Roderick Strong for the AEW International title. Yes, that's right. This is another title match. Um, this is the match I'm least interested in. I do think we both think that Roddy's going to win this one. I don't like Orange Cassidy. I know Mr. Showtime over there does occasionally go after a good comedy gimmick, R-Truth. But it has to be a good comedy gimmick. My issue with Orange Cassidy is I don't think he's a good comedy gimmick. I think he's the Booker's favorite wrestler, and he's been on a 37-1 record tour or something like that, or over that. Like over the last year, he's won like 50 matches and lost 2, and I don't know. I think it's the wrong guy, and I think he's going to eventually get a main event push, and I'm going to dislike it. I don't even dislike the idea of having comedy wrestlers. My issue with the idea of him getting some type of push as a comedy wrestler is when you go to watch the movie, you go to see Tarzan win over Jane. You don't pay for the laughing hyena to save the day at the end of it. So I think he just doesn't do it for me. This is one of those matches that I really want you to watch Showtime, because I do want your opinion, because you do occasionally like guys like this, and maybe I'm just being too harsh on it. I think Roderick Strong wins this. I think Roddy, unfortunately, has been doing bad comedy as well. I think that's the other thing, is it's not just that they're doing comedy, they're doing bad comedy. And it just doesn't get over with me in any version of it. It doesn't get over on me with the internet, with the entertainment version. It doesn't get over with me with the wrestling version. I think Roddy's a better in-ring worker. I think he can carry this match. And I think it could be a good match. I also think that it could just turn into a schmoz.
Yeah, I think so. First of all, for the comedy aspect of things, I love a good comedy angle with a wrestler who can back it up. That's why Truth, I'm so over with me right now, because not only do I think he's absolutely hilarious, the minute he gets into the ring, he can dominate people. So that's why, like, he's like the perfect example of a comedy act that I'm in on right now, because that whole Judgment Day thing I'm so over with that. Like, it's great. I chose Strong as well as you, and the reason be it, like, you kind of mapped out all the things for me, is that, like, what else can Orange Cassidy do with this belt? Like,
Yeah.
he's been on such a tear. I like, to your chagrin, I think this is him taking the step up to the next level from this title, giving it to someone like Roderick Strong, who can kind of take the belt and make it his own for a little while, and then kind of seeing Orange Cassidy going on to the next level. So I will watch it. I'll pay attention to it. Obviously, you know me, I'll critique the hell out of the match and tell you how I hated this spot and how this spot was amazing because it made so much sense, and which is really what I look for in all of these matches. So that's kind of where I'm looking at. But at the end of the day, I think that Orange Cassidy has done what he needed to do with this belt. It's time for him to move on to bigger and better things.
Okay. Next match, Timeless Tony Storm versus Deonna Purrazzo for the AEW Women's title. Honestly, I don't have much on this match. I think we both put Tony Storm. I think it could be Deonna too. I think that AEW's fledgling women's division is just, it's not as interesting as it could be. I think the fact that there's more than one title in the women's division is just too much. It draws attention, especially for when Jade Cargill was there and she went like 32-0 holding the secondary title. It makes your world title look less effective. I think this could be a very good match. I think Deonna Purrazzo is a great women's professional wrestler. She's married to a friend of mine. I think I think they are both great wrestlers. I think Tony Storm is a really good wrestler. And I think this gimmick, if done, Tony Storm's gimmick, if done better, would be awesome. I think it's a little, I think all around it's just a little off. But I do think Tony Storm wins this match.
Yeah, I had Tony Storm as well. I dig this gimmick. I love the old timey actress. I think it's good. I saw it wrestle the other day. It was a quality match. It wasn't anything to write home about, but it was a quality match. So I think she keeps it. I think she's got the right heat on her to kind of keep going as a champion. I don't see any reason why they would have her drop the belt right now.
Exactly. Next up, we have the AEW World Title match, a three-way match between Samoa Joe, who is the champion, Hangman Adam Page, and Swerve Strickland. This is one of the other ones where me and Showtime here disagreed. He put in that he thinks that Samoa Joe is going to hold on to the title. I put in that I think, much to the chagrin of many people, they're going to put the belt on Hangman Adam Page. I don't know. I just have this weird feeling about it. I think, like I said, I think I said it last week. I don't even think Joe was supposed to get this belt at one point. I think he kind of got the title because, more or less, because MJF was going to have to leave because of injury. As far as I know, he's got a torn labrum. I think it's just going to be. I think it's just going to be too much at this point. I think he just doesn't. He doesn't have it. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be Hangman, and I think it's going to be Hangman because they're going to make a heel champion. I want to believe that they're going to lean way more into Swerve being the babyface. I would love to see him getting away from the group that he's with. This way, he stops being associated with a heel group. Other than that, what are you thinking on this one, Mike?
So it's funny that you have Hangman winning this one because I was on the fence between Joe and Swerve. Swerve is just so over right now. I think that it would be an easy argument to give him the belt. So that's why I was leaning towards him. The storyline on this match is just a hot mess. The whole thing seems like it's just kind of thrown together.
It's
See
so
what kind of
terrible.
sticks. Let's go to a time limit draw for the number one contender, so we can make it a three-way match. Let's a second three-way match on this card. I'm not a big fan of those because it end up like you either have a really good three-way match, like it can be done really well, or it's just a bunch of spot moments which okay, let's team these two people up so I can do this spot, and let's team these two people up so we can do this spot, and then the other two will team up to get their spotlight. And I just don't take it. Like it can be done really well. I absolutely love it when you get it done. I'm not suspecting that out of this match, to be honest with you. I'm expecting a decent match. I think these guys are strong competitors. Joe has shown time and time again how he can carry the gold. I chose Joe for this match strictly because he just won the title. I don't see Joe as a transition champion. I really don't, and so I think he should keep the title. Now, is he going to? I'm not sure. I chose him because I think he should hold the title. Give him a couple more months with the title around his waist, and then you could drop it to someone like Swerve or Adam Page or something like that, where or anyone else. Like if you want to get Copeland in here, I don't know. I don't know what their plans are overall, but let's Joe kind of marinate with that title for a little bit, showcase how he can kind of carry the company for a minute or two, and then move on.
Yeah, I don't hate that idea. I just, like I said, I'm literally predicting a little bit of disappointment by the end of this pay-per-view. It's what I've been saying for weeks. I want to be in love with this pay-per-view, and I just can't bring it out of myself. And I'm sorry if I'm being the negative Nelly on that one. Last match we have on here is the World Tag Team title. This is Sting and Darby Allin as champions versus the Young Bucks, Nicholas and Matthew Jackson. This is Sting's last match. This is his go home. They are setting up the storyline where Flair is looking like he's going to turn on him. Just all around, I feel like there's a lot of moving parts on this match. We've talked about it a lot. Obviously, I think the obvious choice is that the Bucks win. Um, I feel like we've talked about this a lot over the last couple of weeks. We don't need to go too much more into this. Uh, Showtime, what are you thinking?
So it should be the Young Bucks. So I'm very much in the camp where if you're the veteran, you're the guy that has this legacy career, you go out on your back. I would love to see him leave his boots in the middle of the ring and like go real classic. Like that would be awesome. I'd pop like that. I don't want to see anything. I think you had mentioned something earlier around potentially Darby double crossing Sting. I hate that idea because there's no retribution afterwards.
I don't.
I also
I don't think that'll happen. I think it would have been better if we got a singles match out of Darby and Sting for
oh
this.
before 100%. That's the match. I don't think anyone's happy about this match at all. I also don't think, as weird as it sounds, I don't think that Flair is going to double cross Sting. I think he's going to double cross the Young Bucks. He's going to double cross the double cross. He can't double stamp a triple stamp.
He's gonna fake the fake.
He's going to fake the fake always. So like I think that's kind of what he's up to because he's done enough times of double crossing Sting. I think in this moment, like he wants to be able to hug Sting at the end of this match, have that moment, and kind of move on. So I think he's more playing the Young Bucks than he is the other way around. Particularly because he's like the storyline angle of this is that he's upset he didn't have more to do with it. And who the people that kind of figure out who's doing
Would
what
be the
where?
executive vice
It's
presidents.
the executive vice presidents, 100%. And like, careful, I don't want to get fined on here, but because they clearly listen to our podcast. So I
I
don't
mean,
know.
they should.
I think I could see Sting and Darby winning this to keep the title on Darby, and then seeing how they kind of rotate a different tag partner with him, or whatever they do. I don't know, but I do think that the Young Bucks should win.
All right. I think that about covers AEW Revolution. Like I said, I am very hopeful for this pay-per-view.
Well, you'll be there.
I will be there. I'm gonna probably stalk Sting and try to get a soundbite. And when I say stalk, I mean stalk. I'm going to I'm going to fangirl out. Not even fanboy. I'm gonna full on fangirl, and someone might have to catch me. It'll be awesome.
This is awkward.
It, it it's only weird if you make it weird. Always make it weird.
No, you made it weird.
Perfect. That's what I was going for. All right. Let's go across the street. We're gonna go to the WWE and their Elimination Chamber. First off, Showtime, what did you think of the show in general?
It was an overall meh pay per view. Like, it wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It was little middle of the road. Like, if you had to give me like what's the bar that you can go above and below, that's kind of how I saw this show. There were some things that I thought were absolutely amazing. I really liked the main event of this show. Obviously, Rhea Ripley was going to win, unlike Scarps' predictions, which was embarrassing. The the one problem with the show was I thought it was incredibly predictable. Like you and I both went 4 for 4 with this one. The fact that both Drew McIntyre and Becky Lynch both started the Elimination Chamber and then won it was like, you could do it once, don't do it twice. They were different matches. I actually thought that the women's one was better than the men's Elimination Chamber, where it was. I feel like there was more of a story told in that ring. More people got over. I felt like there was a lot of spots with the men's one. I thought a lot of people were kind of laying around a lot more than I'd like to see. I know that we watched the original one, but the original one, everyone was bleeding. There was no mats around. The steel grate on the bottom.
And
It
I
was
know
it was a
it's rough.
punishing elimination chamber. Like, Bischoff plays for keeps. So that's kind of my take on some of those things. I think that Tiffany Stratton, like, in my mind, she won the Elimination Chamber because she was so over. I was really surprised.
Did you see the video of the fans just yell, like just screaming for her. They started to chant that like for Tiffy time or something like that while she was
Yeah,
still in the pod.
yeah, and then when she got pinned, there's chanting BS.
Yeah.
So uh, so in that sense, I liked how she got over. I really what's it called? I really liked Naomi's gear. I thought that was dope. I liked the flashing shoes. The tag match was great throughout the night. The I liked the men's elimination chamber. It was fine. I like the implications that it has going into Mania. You got LA Knight and AJ Styles set up. You have Orton and Logan Paul. The thing I don't like about that is that Kevin Owens is kind of like the odd man out now. I was actually kind of excited for Kevin Owens to rematch Logan Paul at Mania. So in that sense, like I feel a little cheated, but I think that Logan Paul and Randy Orton's going to be an awesome match, probably even better than what Kevin Owens would have done in that sense. Uh, I I love this heel turn that Drew's doing right now. His like not heel, just opportunist if you want to call him that. Though I thought he looked a little weak when he was just standing over Randy Orton at the end. Like you know that you're going to get RKO'd if you just stand there. Like come on, man. Like what are we doing here? Like, if anyone proves I'm the snake in the grass, it's the viper. And I to talk about what's called predictability when you had Logan Paul just standing there showing those brass knuckles to everybody milliseconds before it happens. I'm like, oh, RKO, and then boom, he got hit with it.
Yeah, I overall liked the pay-per-view, PLE, whatever we want to call it this week. I thought, same as you, I thought Tiffany Stratton was over huge.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you and I both went what 4 for 4.
4-4.
So we're batting 1,000. What did Esquire go again?
2 for 2. It's embarrassing. Or 2 for 2.
Sorry, I'm rubbing it in now. Silly
Yeah,
mark.
he's not here to defend himself today because he's either at home crying about his embarrassment or he's working his normal job. Who can say what he's doing? I'm not sure.
I'm not here to clarify that. All around, I like this storyline. I'm sorry. I like the storylines coming out of this. The one thing I agree with you that I wish we could get some closure between Owens and Logan Paul. The other side of that is I also think that Orton is a guy that they can use to take the title off of Logan Paul and not make him look weak at the end of the day. And I'm not saying that Owens isn't. I'm just saying Orton is absolutely that guy. If the 15-time world champion beats Logan Paul, yeah, that kind of makes sense and it should happen. And then you can move him and transition him to something else. And I wouldn't be surprised if he has other things that are going on outside of pro wrestling. They might need the title off of him at Mania. I also wouldn't be surprised if it just turns into one big 4-way schmoz, which I hope it does not.
I actually was in the camp of potentially Logan Paul going over Randy Orton.
I wouldn't mind that either. It really, really pushes him, kind of shoots him to the moon.
It really does, and I think if you're gonna do like that's why I had McIntyre over Orton for my prediction for this because it really legitimizes McIntyre. So at the end of the day, anyone that Randy puts over is already a legit dude, and you beat Kevin Owens regardless of how nefarious it was. Then you go and beat Orton at Mania. Like, what do you do next? Like, you can do anything you want.
Yeah. I think from there, with everything that we're talking about with Elimination Chamber, I think we should just go right into some of the stuff with Raw after the Elimination Chamber.
Wait a second. Before you move on, Steve, I was curious on your take on the women's match. So, the title match, I really liked it at the
women's title match.
So I thought it was a little slow at times, but I thought that Rhea and Nia had a great match. I loved how Rhea went full babyface for her home crowd. Her family was in attendance. It was believable. They had been building up her hitting that finisher move on Naya, like not being able to do it, not being able to do it, even before this show. So, like, I thought they told a great story. I think Rhea Ripley is phenomenal. I think not only is she one of the best women, if not the best women's wrestler on the roster, she's one of the best wrestlers on the roster. And I
Yes.
really think that she is crushing it. And I'm cool if she just keeps this title for freaking ever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yes, I love Rhea Ripley. I thought this match was good. I don't know if we said this match was probably going to be good or bad. I assumed it was going to at least be watchable because of Rhea Ripley. I think she doesn't put anything out there that's not good to watch. I thought that match was good. As far as the women's elimination chamber match though goes, I thought it was good enough. My problem in some of the women's matches is it just seems very rushed. As far as the women's gimmick matches, I'm sorry, let me clarify that. Women's matches, women's singles matches, women's tag team matches, I think they quite often put on the same show that the men put on, and I'm very entertained by them. But whether it's the women's Royal Rumble, the women's Elimination Chamber, the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, whatever you want to call it, whichever gimmick match that we end up watching, I just feel like some of it gets very, very rushed. And it's almost like and a lot of them are newer, younger. I mean, realistically, the most experienced wrestler in the women's elimination chamber was Becky Lynch. And I'm not taking anything away from anyone else. I think they're all amazing athletes. I think they're all amazing wrestlers, even. I think that's why you had with Becky and Naomi, they kind of started it off a little bit like a wrestling match. I believe we talked about this, that it kind of came off a little bit as a schmaz. It seemed rushed.
I loved what they were trying to do, and it was 85% really, really well done. But I feel like they were trying to go too fast or chain too many moves together for what they were able to do. I don't know if it was just the bright lights or the looming cage around them that kind of stumbled a couple things in there. Like, I would like that to have been a little bit crisper, but I absolutely love where their head was at.
I loved where their head was at too. I think, like I said, it's a lot of the stuff with some of the women's gimmicks matches. Just, it feels rushed. It feels like we're just going from move to move rather than us getting the story of the move. And that's not. I'm not saying that they're not good wrestlers. I think some of it comes with some of the maturity and some of the experience that a lot of them don't have. Let's face it, Bianca Belair's been on the main roster, I think, 3 years. You know, she hasn't been there very long. Liv Morgan, same thing. Tiffany Stratton's been on there for 3 minutes. You know, it's, and don't get me wrong, I think Tiffany Stratton gets it more than almost anyone. And man, did she take some bumps. Like, even the stuff with Liv throwing her into the glass and the swanton into the group, like, it's weird. I feel like she's one of those ones that comes along that absolutely gets it.
Yeah, I'm all for TV time. That swanton was amazing. I actually thought they were going to drop her on her head, which I was like, I took that gasp, and when they caught her, because that would have been a messy fall.
Even with the pads.
Even with the pads, that was like, I was nervous. That was the one you didn't need to suspend disbelief right there. That was like, oh no.
Yeah, please don't die.
I think you're going to see her get pushed to the moon pretty quickly. She has the look. She looks like she has the skills. I know she, like, they have to season a little bit, like have her get in there, do a couple things here and there, get a good storyline going. But I think you could definitely see that she's a superstar of tomorrow.
Honestly, I'm going to throw this out there. I don't think that this is what they're going to do. I think they're going to stick to their guns on what they've been telling us, or what we've all assumed the plan is going to be, and it's going to be Bianca and Jade at Mania. But would anyone be mad at a match between Bianca and Tiffany?
I think that would be dope.
I think we get a really good athletic match out of it. They work a very similar style. They come from a very similar background. Bianca coming from, I believe it was LSU. She was a track and field star. That's why she's like able to do what she does. Like she was a sprinter and like a pole vaulter or something like that. Something where you have massive amounts of strength going around with it. And Tiffany Stratton being a world class gymnast, like that's why she, when she first came in, that they kept calling her the Buff Barbie.
Tiffany, you are a gymnast?
You are a gymnast. Thank you. I again, I thought there were a lot of good things that came out of the Elimination Chamber. I think there was also a couple bad things. I think we touched on them. I think Raw. I think that's a good enough reason to go to the Raw that was after Elimination Chamber. There's a couple things that I really liked. I like this questioning of who will face Gunther. I actually like that. I like that we don't know and that there's a competition for it. I love that Drew McIntyre is doubling down on the stuff about messing with Punk. Like, oh, I really thought I was going to be able to do it, and then I realized I'm not CM Punk, and I won't let you down. Like,
I drank enough for the both of us.
yeah, all of that. Like, amazing. Cody's match with and his segment afterwards. Cody's match, I think, was good. I thought Grayson Waller, that's who he was wrestling. Sorry, I lost my word for a second. I think Grayson Waller showed that he can hang in kind of deeper waters. I still stick with that. Grayson Waller could be a star if they just changed up his gear.
Yeah. First off, Steven, forgetting names is my gimmick, not yours. I appreciate you backing off a little bit.
Sorry.
But I agree. I agree with you there. I think Waller, like, I like that match in the beginning. Like, it was a match until it turned into a squash because you need to make Cody look like he's a world beater. So I completely get that. But I actually would like to see Waller Theory at Mania. Like maybe there's a little bit of fallout happening here. Maybe a pre-show kind of match. It's not like a main attraction, but like have the two of them go at it the way that because you could see some of the side eyes that that Theory was giving him when he was like I did everything I could. Stand over to the side and do nothing. That's all you could do.
Just let it happen.
So there's going to be something come out of it. I know that we were talking about it doesn't mean a face turn. Doesn't mean that he was just a heel that I'm out for myself. And like Austin is a big boy, he can take care of himself. He asked for that, whatever that thought process is. But I think the two of them will put on a fantastic match when there's not a squash in mind. And I think I would pop for that.
I think I'd like that. I think that would be a good opener. Even or like a match, like you're coming off of maybe even a low match and you get this match to kind of build us back up.
They probably start with a title match, I would assume, just to kind of get everybody hot to start. But then you kind of add this in, or even you give him his segment and it turns into a match. I can see that happening as well.
The Gunther stuff, kind of anyone that they're putting in there with him right now, I really like. I do like Chad Gable. They mentioned a couple different names. I like the personal angle that they're giving with Gable. And again, I don't know if they're going to go. I don't know which way they're going to go with it. And I feel like there's a lot of ways they could go. I know you and I have spoken about maybe doing a tournament to fix it, or in my case, I said even like eliminator matches. I feel like it's going to turn into a multi-man match. I think that's just the world that we're living in. It's gonna get there. It might not be what I want, but it might be what we get.
I don't want it. We did it last year. Let's do something different. I'm fearful it's going to be like a 5-person ladder match, and like it's just going to be a giant cluster.
Which, by the way, if that's what they do, they'll open the show with it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that as well. So I just want to see a one-on-one IC. It could be a ladder match. I'm all for a great one-on-one ladder match for it with Gunther and like Sami Zayn. Like I would love to see that. I don't mind it being a gimmick. The people that like right now clearly who they're setting up are Sami Zayn, Chad Gable, and Dominic Mysterio, which, oh, I didn't mention this on the Elimination Chamber, but I'm so impressed with the heat that Dominic Mysterio has that they had to black out the telecast for like a minute. Like, that's heat. Like, let's talk about, like, he shut down the show because people were so angry with him. Like, yes, get it, kid. Fuck yeah,
Oh,
I'm in.
oh
Like,
man.
I'm the one guy rooting for Dominic Mysterio now. Like, you'll hear, I was saying Boo Earns. Like, that is, like, I'm in. Like, you get
Oh,
that kind of heat, it's nuclear heat. I'm like, I don't even know how you do that. Like, he broke it. I'm not even mad. I'm kind of impressed. So, like, honestly, I would like to see Gunther and Dominic Mysterio go at it. Like, Gunther just absolutely manhandle him, but then Judgment Day shenanigans gets the title on him. Like, let's go, because they're looking for ways to get the IC title off of him. I don't know if it's happening at Mania, but I know that they're working an angle because they need to get Gunther into the world title picture. Um, you need the dust to settle from the Mania matches that we have already booked with McIntyre and Rollins, with Cody and with Reigns. That all the dust has to settle with those, and then you figure out what's going to happen with Gunther. But it could be a good time for him to drop the belt at Mania. Though, I'm a little afraid that like every title except for Rhea's is going to change hands at Mania, and like you don't want that either. So I'm not quite sure. Like I could see the IC title being the one that stays, just because I didn't want to change both world title hands, the tag team titles, the other women's title. Even though I don't know what the deal is with Bayley, she's not on any posters. She's not at any press conferences. She won the Rumble, so I'm assuming she's the one that's going to get that title shot. But I don't know.
see,
Like, I don't know what to do with her.
um, I could see them holding off on Gunther, and I know this sounds almost backwards, but I could see them having him lose it at the German show. Um, I think people underestimate the idea of losing in your hometown, and I think that's one of those things he might that might so long they might have a main event. I think the Intercontinental title might actually main event that show, and Gunther's going to lose in the main event, but prove that he can absolutely main event the show. Like they're going to put him in there with a main event caliber guy going after the Intercontinental title, and they're going to and I've seen him tear the house down. I've seen him in the three-way match with Sheamus and McIntyre. I know you weren't a huge fan of it, but I've also seen him go in there with both Sheamus and McIntyre on their own, and they tore the house down. They went in there, and I think they might transition it that way, and then start building him from Germany towards maybe the Rumble. That gives you about 4 or 5 months.
So, I mean, also doing something like a 4-person Mania match that has like a ladder involved or something like that is also a way to protect Gunther as well. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't have to be the one that gets pinned. He doesn't have to be the one that like loses the race to the strap or whatever it is. He still looks strong coming out of that kind of match where he didn't technically lose. No one actually pinned him. So I get that. But like you said, I want to see a tournament. I would like to see King of the Ring style, whatever you want to call it, even if it's like one night of all these guys going back to back to back matches. Give me 4 to 8 guys just getting at it for this title. You know, we I think we mentioned Chad Gable, Dominic Mysterio, Sami Zayn. He mentioned Kofi. He mentioned R-Truth, and he mentioned The Miz. So like the Awesome Truth, we think is going to be the tag team title match. I think that they mentioned those names more to kind of intro the Judgment Day to come out. So I don't think that they'll be in the mix, but I could see a couple more names coming up over the next week or so that would be in there. Like some surprising ones. Like I would love the idea of Braun Breaker coming in here. That he just got pulled up to the roster. He's the last person to pin Gunther, so he can say, "I'm the last person to put you on your back. Now I'm going to be the next one as well." So I could really see that, and I hate the idea of him getting pushed so quickly because I'm afraid of the backlash. I'm really excited about Braun in this situation where um, I want to see him come out and be that world beater. I want to see him come in like a monster, like a wrecking crew kind of thing. Uh, but like I don't want people to get resentful of another uh multi-generation wrestler getting pushed too quickly, and then all of a sudden he gets the wrong heat. So that's the one thing I'm concerned with him getting in there. But those are four names right there. Throw a whole bunch out there. This could be where Kevin Owens kind of goes into. This is where there's a whole bunch of other names that can kind of jump in there. Bobby Lashley needs something to do. So there's a few of those guys that can come in there, could really elevate the IC title on. Everyone seems to want it, and no one really has claim to it. And kind of go from there. Let's use that as storyline as all the other titles are solidified at this point in time.
Yeah. Also, I mean, that's the thing with the 2 nights of WrestleMania. That means there's a lot of space to fill. You got 2 4-hour shows basically.
Yeah,
That's
and
a lot to do.
yeah, if and you kind of you may have mentioned this before, I may have misunderstood you, but like day one could be an awesome four-way elimination style match where the winner coming out of that meets Gunther day two.
I would
Like
like
that
that.
could be a really fun way to do that. Really break
Or
up who it was, and then get a real title match next day.
so I'm going to throw this one out there for you. Instead of doing the 4-way elimination match, do day one because they always do the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Have whoever wins that Battle Royal gets a shot at Gunther.
Yeah, I'm in for that kind of
And
stipulation as well.
that's actually a really good way to get Braun Breaker into it.
Yeah, because you always have a monster win those things.
Yeah.
Like it's like, sorry, Sammy, you don't win those kind of matches. I hope I'm wrong because I would like to see Sammy get a really nice push. Like he deserves it. Like everything he's done with the bloodline over the last year, going into where he's at now, him being down and out, and now I think he's. We mentioned this. We were talking about this earlier, where I think that he just started his winning streak with his win on Raw
Against
against
Shinsuke.
Nakamura. Yeah, so I think that that's the start of his win streak, which is the reason why Gunther laughed at him during the segment on Raw. So it just kind of legitimizes him. He has the heat that you need in that situation.
I think the one thing that you and I absolutely agree on going into or coming out of Raw is we don't need Liv in the main event of Liv Morgan in the main event of WrestleMania. I don't need her in the world title match. I'm fine with her getting a cool match. I just she doesn't need to be there. I don't think she's ready, and I'm not saying that she won't ever be ready. I don't think she's ready right now to be in a world title picture at WrestleMania.
Let's keep the hypocrisy to kayfabe, because it's funny how Liv pins Trish Stratton in the Elimination Chamber, and they get a bullshit chant. But now she's the one we want in the main picture. These things don't map up, and like that's a little lost to me. I get we want Cody. We spent 2 years building to this match with Roman. We spent 2 years of him getting screwed, of him having to go through monsters, not being able to challenge for it. He's only the fourth ever person to win two Rumbles back to back. The like it is like this story has been designed, and we have been along for the ride the whole time. You can't bait and switch us and then throw us to Rollins because CM Punk got hurt. I understand the crowd swell. I understand why Triple H did what he did. I know Paul's listening right now, so please don't listen to the fans in this one. Because I'm cool with Liv being the next woman up for Rhea to take apart. Because again, I don't think she's losing this title anytime soon. They've been kind of in the business of long term title reigns right now, right? Between the IC title and the world title. So
I think both women's titles they've had for I think everything they've kind of held for a minute here. I mean,
yeah,
even you can say Rollins, he didn't hold the title that long because it hasn't been around, but he's held it the entirety of the time. So he's held it for 6 months or so, which I
yeah.
mean, at
So
one point that would be a lengthy title reign.
So I just don't see like the story's not there. This is Becky's story. Like this is where we've been going for a long time. Though I think that this is one of the storylines that's a bit of a cluster for me right now because it doesn't really make sense. Because if you look at kind of what they've been doing, I get why they've done things. I just don't think they were the right ways to do it. When you take Nia Jax and have her beat the crap out of 6 people that are going to be in the elimination chamber, I think it took the heat off of them being legitimate contenders to go up against Rhea. But you wanted to build up Nia. Fine, but now I think less of the people who were in that match compared to Nia and Becky. Now what you're going to do is you're going to build Nia up to be the monster that Becky beats in order to get her to the next stage to be able to be legitimate against Rhea, even though she just got beat. But like it just doesn't make sense on the pieces that they're putting together in this moment in time in order to legitimize people to go to the next spot. And then you bring Liv into this. Does Liv then beat Nia to then be
which
in?
you almost had her do at one point, and I'm like, it's too much. I think it's too much. Kind of like you said, there's too many moving pieces in this. I think the simplest answer is the best answer, and that's we have Becky versus Rhea. Let's just keep it Becky versus Rhea.
Yeah, and if you want to do Liv Morgan versus Nia Jax at Mania as well, and have Liv go over, and then it shows that she's the next person up, great, go nuts. But let's separate this. We don't need a 3-way match, a 3-way dance for this title.
Yeah, I would even say, hold off on Liv getting the title shot, even if she is the next person. I would maybe have Rhea have either like a BS title match or not have a title match on the next show. Not have her have a title match at Backlash, and maybe go from Liv beating Nia to, if Rhea wins, which I think she should, have Liv beating Becky. And all of a sudden you've beaten the world beaters. Like you're the one who is now knocking down the door, and build her towards SummerSlam. Actually build it up to a big match. Make it seem like you can do all the things. I know we talked a little bit on Cody's match and the Paul Heyman segment. I love Cody showing fire at the end. I think that was huge. Someone brought up to me the idea that having Cody go to SummerSlam was okay. I don't disagree with the idea of having him win at SummerSlam. If he gets screwed, is the wrong choice. I think it diminishes because of not just the event, but where the events are held. Having WrestleMania and having you win in Philly at Lincoln Financial Field in front of 80 or 90,000 people is much bigger than winning at the number 2 pay-per-view in Cleveland. I'm not trying to say to bash Cleveland, but you're going from one of the biggest cities in America to a city in America.
Steve, Cleveland doesn't need your help bringing it down. My problem, like, none of that really matters to me at the end of the day. What matters to me is I've already seen WrestleMania 39. I don't need to see it again.
Exactly.
Like, I want WrestleMania 40. Like, and WrestleMania 40, like, you talk about Cody finishing a story. Let him just finish the story. And like, this isn't him finishing the story either. Like, once he gets this title, is there a part 2? Is like, what does that mean? Like he's going to be, I think Cody's going to be around for a while. And I think that they found their baby face to like be the face of the company for at least a minute.
Yeah.
To kind of come back, like bring rainbows and unicorns back to Raw, where it's been just covered in the bloodline. So, and like, sure, the bloodline's going to continue to feud with him. If it's The Rock, if it's Roman, I don't know, like, who's going to take time off, who's not. I don't like CM Punk. I don't know, but at the end of the day, like, I think they found their guy and who they can kind of ride the back of for at least a little while. So let him do it. If you have him lose because of antics, it's the same show as last year. It's the same main event as last year, and I don't want to see it again. I want to see something different. Either have Roman win cleanly because I haven't seen that in a while, or have Cody win cleanly.
Yeah.
Like that's what I want, a definitive win, and then we can kind of move on from there.
I agree with that. I think that's about all we got for Raw at this point. Honestly, I think like kind of how you said it, Raw and Elimination Chamber were both good.
They were average. They're
Yeah,
fine.
they were there. I think I think we did as much as we could with them. I think that brings us to Esquire's inquiries,
But
which
he's not here.
he phoned it in via satellite from the South American jungle that he's in right now, or at work, one or the other.
Something like that.
So the question is, if you could comprise a tag team with any two wrestlers from any era, who would you choose, and who would you have their rivals be? Showtime, I'm going to throw it to you on this one first. I know how much you love tag team wrestling.
Yeah, it's a good question too. Because so essentially you want to construct this with a face and a heel, two people who like have similar styles or magic styles. A good example of this kind of team would be like a Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit, like going back to Survivor Series 2002. Not to beat a dead horse here, but those two guys were like a perfect mishmash of personalities that made a good tag team. Even if you looked at the Edge and Rey Mysterio, it was the same kind of dynamic where they were two people who weren't really tag teams kind of coming together to be one. I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't start with Oli after the beginning of this show. So I would start there with Oli and give me someone that has a similar kind of no nonsense attitude that they can kind of play off each other. And some like two guys that can kind of like just, I don't know, stop a mud hole in you and then move on. I think I'm gonna team him with Stone Cold because I think that's just like that's a scary tag team. I think that if you had to stand in the other corner from those two, I'd be terrified. With that,
Now, who's the foil?
yeah. So to go with that, I really liked some of the work that Oli did with Steamboat. So give me Steamboat on the other side with oh man, who's good with Steamboat?
See, it's funny because I think you might already be stealing my idea.
Yeah, with Chris Jericho.
All right, so we're a little different right now.
So Steamboat and Jericho versus Stone Cold and Oli would be devastating. That can main event any show.
All right, so I'm gonna go a little different. Most of my guys are going to be from the same era here. I was gonna do one set of rivals, and I decided to set up a different set of rivals on this one. I am starting off with Ricky Steamboat. For anyone who has not watched Ricky Steamboat's tag team work, you are absolutely missing out. And the person I'm gonna have him tag up with is kind of a very similar style, though he has a little bit more of a rough and tumble to him, even because he's crazy. And I'm gonna have him tag up with Macho Man Randy Savage. And on the other side of this, their foil, I'm going to choose an actual tag team. I'm not going to put a tag team together. I'm going to choose an actual tag team. And
I don't think you're answering the question, but fine.
Well, if I'm going from the time period that they would have been wrestling with each other, my answer is going to be the Minnesota Wrecking Crew. Either incarnation of it. Because if you gave me Ole and Gene or Ole and Arn versus Macho and Steamboat, you get that finesse babyface athleticism out of the babyface side of things, out of the Steamboat and the Savage side of things. Not to mention, you get Savage doing probably some great promo work, but then you get that rough, we're gonna beat you up heel style of the Andersons, and I would love to watch that.
I dig that. You're not wrong, but I think you missed the point of the question. That's fine.
Listen, there's no such thing as a wrong answer here.
That's not correct. You're now twice wrong.
Jeez. I miss Scarps already.
He wouldn't allow this either.
He might have.
You know he's on my side.
Yeah, damn heels. All the heels that I keep working with. All right, guys. With that, our show comes to a conclusion. I appreciate everyone that's been coming in and listening and following. Gratitude is a big part of my life lately, and I want to just add that in there. That thank you. I am very grateful and very appreciative of anyone who has followed us on any platform and is listening to us. Please, if you know anyone who's a pro wrestling fan, please pimp us out at this point. The easiest thing that you could possibly do is hit the follow button, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We are not asking you to pay for a subscription. We are asking you just to follow and like us. It is quite literally the easiest thing you can do to help us out if you are enjoying our program. Other than that, all of our information for questions, anything like that, it will be in the information side of the podcast. I am Steve Zapf. This is Mr. Showtime, Michael Wright. We bid you adieu and have a good night.
Thank you all. Love you all.